Hey,
Hey,
I
how's it going?
good. I am SF Rogers.
and I am DL Golden. We are talking to.
Casey Sutton. How's it going, everybody?
Good. So this is the Authors Chaos podcast. We're glad you're here. We're not professionals. We don't do this full time. We're just kind of flying by the seat of our pants at this point. Whatever we say is strictly opinion, things that we've learned in the industry. Take it, leave it. It's fine.
Yeah,
Right.
just leave a comment and like the video at some point while you do it.
Yes.
Nice.
Yes.
Yeah, that will help us to actually sort through and figure out what's going on. So tell us a little bit about yourself, Casey. Who are you?
All right, so I'm Casey Sutton. I've been kind of all over. My parents or my dad was in the military, and then I joined the military too. So I've kind of lived a little bit all over. But I live in Athens, Ohio now. And I am, my headphones keep popping out.
Right.
I'm the author of Malphus, Necromancer Unchained, which I have a copy here behind me. Yeah, there you go. Can you guys see it?
Yes.
Cool. So, I'm the author of Malphus, and it's a grimdark fantasy novel. My kind of tagline I like to say is Dungeons and Dragons meets Quentin Tarantino, but I'll talk more about that later. So I will say I have been an avid reader. I've been a big nerd. There's a bunch of Dungeons and Dragons books behind me. I've been playing D&D since probably 6th grade, and I've always been stuck as the dungeon master instead of getting to make a cool player and play along with everybody else. But I think making the story that everybody else played in with all the people they interacted with was probably my first step towards being a writer. And so anyways, yeah, so I spent my whole life, being a Dungeons and Dragons nerd, doing a lot of reading and kind of always wanting to write, but never quite feeling ready. And then in 2018, in South Africa, actually, while I was meeting my girlfriend's family over there, I had a near-death experience, and while I was over there, I had some internal bleeding, had to get rushed to the hospital, and got some emergency surgery, and as you can see, everything came out okay. But I was in the hospital bed for about a week, and I had a pile of books sitting there next to me on how to be a writer, how to plan, outline your book. And I've been reading books on writing for years, and I guess I kind of had a wake-up call then that, tomorrow isn't promised, and, if you don't start working on your book, it'll never be there. So I started actually outlining my book and working on it that night in the hospital bed.
That was 2018?
2018, and actually technically that was my first book that I worked on, but Malphus is the second book I've worked on, the first book that I've actually hit publish on and gone through all the steps.
So you would say definitely that your writing started in 2018 then, after that?
Yeah, I actually, and this when we get to the advice piece, I'll talk more about this, but I really did not write very much of my life, other than, a little bit with kind of Dungeons and Dragons and stuff, but not like actually writing. Mm-hmm. And, I just read a lot. I read a lot of books on writing, but at the same time as I was doing that, I should have actually been writing and, getting that under my belt, but I just never felt like I was ready or good enough and let that hold me up.
Yeah, and so you decided to go with self-publishing, correct, rather than traditional. Why was that?
Yeah, and so that's an interesting story too. So the funny thing with my book Malphus is I never actually intended to go through the whole thing and publish it. Like when I first started it, it was actually kind of ironically just a writing exercise that I had planned, where I really wanted to work on flawed characters and work on getting like a tighter POV with them. And so I started that. I wrote a few chapters, and I kind of in my head, I think maybe planned for it to be like 8, maybe 10, just kind of like a short little thing to just practice on different writing things. And I I posted some of the chapters on a website called Royal Road, which is like Wattpad or some of those other websites where you can post some of your writing online for people to read for free and get feedback. And I can't remember at what chapter it was, but I posted a few chapters, and then I would post like one every 2 weeks or one a week while I was working on them. And at some point around like chapter 7 or 8, it kind of really took off on Royal Road and made it to like the top 50 on the website. And I was actually contacted by this senior acquisitions editor, which is also another funny story because I thought the email was junk mail at first, but from Tantor Audio about wanting to make Malphas into an audiobook. And so that was all really cool. But then I realized, okay, well, since I published it on Royal Road, that means that the first publishing rights are gone. And also now that I've given up the audio rights, there's no way a traditional publisher would ever want to take it. And, like I said, I had never really set out with that in mind in the first place, never really kind of imagined it would go this far at all. I was just trying to, as a new writer, find readers and use Royal Road as a platform. And then it just kind of blew up. And it was also kind of a little crazy too, because I wouldn't say I wasn't taking the story seriously, but I was working on different pieces and never had this full vision or scope of it in mind. So then kind of once I got contacted by this serious company who actually wanted to give me a cash advance and everything, I was like, well, I better have a story that's going to deliver. So it definitely put a lot of pressure on me to do that. So around the halfway point, I kind of had to pull back and like really outline everything, change a few parts that I had worked on, and I stopped posting it online at that point too because am I still there?
Yeah, you're still here. You're good.
I feel like I disconnected.
Nope, you're good.
Yeah, we got you still. Can you hear us, Casey? We're still counting. Hang on. Technical difficulties here, guys.
It's a
Lost
day.
connection set on that too.
You
hey,
there?
Casey, can you hear us? Can you hear us, Casey? Oh.
Hello?
What just happened? You have full internet.
Okay. That's probably just staring off into space. Well, it looks like it's freezing up on my end. I see you guys freezing.
When we say or technical difficulties has been a day.
There we go. Not sure if that was on my end and I was just staring at everybody for a while, or if that was...
No, it was us.
Okay.
Yeah, we didn't think it was us, but it popped off really quick
us.
there. So.
Well, then if that's the case, it means I was just here staring at everybody, right?
That's all right. I won't edit that. You can just stare at people as long as you want. So you quit you said you quit posting it online at that point, and that was because you decided you were gonna actually go out and publish it for real then.
Yeah, so I quit, I didn't want to, for one, kind of spoil the story, and also I guess there were a lot of reasons. I didn't want to keep getting feedback on my story was great, but I didn't want my story to keep being shaped by the feedback of others. I didn't want to just get it out there, and especially if I was going to publish it, then someone could just go and publish it all, or pirate it anyways, which seems like that's just what happens to all of us. But yeah, so that I took it down at that point, and then just kind of took a break and went through and finished the first draft, and then I went through all the rounds of editing, and actually lucked out on Readsy has been a great website for me because they're people on there. It's kind of like an eBay/Fiverr for authors, and you can look up services like editing, cover designers, etc. And the people there are vetted and have reviews, which is great, and have like their portfolios of their past work on there. And you can find some really fantastic professionals. I worked with an editor named John Oliver, who has worked with Brandon Sanderson before, and then casually mentioned being in a live panel with George R.R. Martin when I was talking to him on the phone. And yeah,
Just casual.
yeah, seriously, like I had to stop him. I was like, no, seriously? And he was like, oh yeah. My cover designer too, Alejandro Colucci, he has designed covers for Anne Rice and some of the Witcher books and stuff. And so, I mean, not only can you find these people on there, but their prices that they charge are really reasonable, and we're not that much, higher, or we're really about the same as the industry standard, I'll be honest. Like, maybe slightly higher also because Reezy puts like a minor fee for kind of managing the situation, helping you find the professional and all that stuff. But I think it was well worth the money to work with people like that, and they're right at your fingertips even as an indie author.
That's awesome.
I hadn't heard of that service. That could be really, really useful.
Yeah, so it's Reedsy, REEDSY.com, and I have no affiliation with them.
Right.
We get that. So tell us about Malphus.
So Malphus is kind of interesting. So like I said, it started out as a writing exercise where I really wanted to work more on flawed characters and a closer POV. So I had this kind of weird, like, car crash of 3 or 4 different ideas that came together and I think worked really well. So for the character aspect, I had this kind of weird idea of what if the Joker was the good guy and Batman was the bad guy, or not necessarily good guy, but at least the protagonist. And so Malphus is a necromancer, and another central idea of my world is the setting. I'm very much a D&D nerd, so I drew a lot from that. I made my own original world, but I do have a lot of Dungeons and Dragons kind of elements, like the school of necromancy, for example, all that stuff. There's gnolls in there too. I've always kind of liked gnolls as bad guys and all that. But so anyways, in my world, necromancy is illegal, so Malphus as a person is someone who kind of operates outside of, the law and the rules of society and stuff. And it isn't necessarily a bad guy per se, but, like the Joker is kind of like that. And then the story starts out with him captured or already a prisoner by the Inquisitor of, like the established religion there. And it's their kind of responsibility primarily to make sure that necromancy is, stamped out and that nobody practices it because of a ancient calamity that happened from another necromancer. So anyways, the Inquisitor is kind of like Batman as a bad guy, like very by the law, like, very law and order at any cost. And so he's escorting Malphus across the countryside, and, there's where Unchained comes in, Necromancer Unchained. Malphus has these manacles that stop him from using magic at the beginning of the story, and he's, already captured. They're going across the countryside nearby this kind of ancient calamity thing I mentioned, so the Inquisitor can take Malphus to justice and be tried for his crimes and tortured and executed and all that. But on their way, they're ambushed by gnolls, which for people who don't play D&D are these kind of like half-human, half-hyena monsters. And so they're ambushed by gnolls, and then they have to run, and then they take refuge at this military outpost that's, manned by these soldiers who are already under siege by these gnolls and have been under siege for a long time. And so basically that's kind of essentially where the story kind of starts in the first couple chapters. So sorry if I end up spoiling a little bit for people that read, but that's basically on the back blurb of the book, so you'll read that too. So more or less, Malphus is a prisoner. The Inquisitor arrives with him at the fort, and then this army, military outpost of soldiers that's badly wounded and outnumbered has to make the difficult decision to either listen to the Inquisitor and not free Malphus, or free Malphus so he can raise some of the dead and help them survive.
That's awesome.
Thank you.
And I've read the first 3 or 4 chapters of it, and it is really, really good.
Thank you. I appreciate
I'm very
that.
impressed. Yeah, it's been a fun read to have. Sorry, I had a issue.
We had a technical difficulty.
No problem.
Enjoy looking at Daniel's arm.
So yeah, I've read a little bit of it, and I've gotten kind of sidetracked with doing other work, but it's been a really fun read to get through.
Awesome,
and
thank
you have
you.
You have that on Kindle Unlimited and stuff as well, right? So if you have that, free to you.
Yeah, so it's on Kindle Unlimited, the ebook is, and then the paperback and hardcover. You also, one thing I'll call out is the book has 10 really awesome illustrations I got done with this cool Serbian artist named Dejan Delic. He's really awesome. He does a lot of fantasy art. But I have 10 different illustrations inside, and the paperback's black and white, but the hardcover is color. Both of those are available on Amazon, but I also have a shop on my website where I'm doing signed copies and eventually sprayed edge copies that I'm working on available there. And then the audiobook is available on Amazon, but also available kind of looks like everywhere. I don't really have as much control over that. That is one thing really cool I have to just mention real quick too, is the audiobook. So this whole thing was really neat. So I got to pick the narrator for my audiobook, so that was cool. I got to listen to like a few different samples of recording, and then I picked the one I liked, but I asked that he read like another section that had more different characters talking, and that was still really impressive. But when I actually got to hear the audiobook, which was at the very end after it was published, it was amazing. Like, he did some really fantastic voices. None of them they were all distinct but not distracting, and like even on the narration, like he paused in the right parts, emphasized the right parts and stuff, and that was really cool. But I looked the guy up, and he's actually an actor. Like, he's a play and stage actor in Georgia, and then he's on IMDb and has had like a few kind of small roles in True Detective and NCIS and some other TV shows, so that's kind of cool.
That's cool.
Yeah, I can't imagine having an audiobook version. That's so interesting. And so that audiobook would be available like through Audible then, and that?
Yeah, Audible and audiobooks as well. And I think on audiobooks, and that was a platform I was honestly a little bit less familiar with, but audiobooks.com, and it's actually like half off there now until I think August 1st.
Nice. Like I said, it's a really fun read, and I'm sure the audiobook is going to be great.
Yeah. Yeah, just in case you don't end up listening to the audiobook or something, his Colonel Peshka is amazing. It's like one part, I don't know, did you watch Knives Out? The Netflix movie?
I have not seen it.
Okay,
no.
It's a great movie, but there's a detective in there played by Daniel Craig named Benoit Blanc, who's kind of like this southern gentleman, almost like Foghorn Leghorn from Looney Tunes, and he does this same kind of like southern gentleman accent for Peshka, and it's really, really cool. It's my favorite part, to be honest.
That is amazing.
I can't even imagine having someone be like, hey, we wanna set your book up as an audiobook. Like, but again, I'm just in first edit, so like that sounds so far-fetched to me.
I mean, it honestly was with me too. Like, I'm just posting my first edits of the book on Royal Road, and this email comes to my junk mail, and I've, even at this early stage in writing, I've gotten so many scam emails and stuff. Like, I'm always suspicious, but yeah, they're like, he emails me and he's like, we were interested in turning this into an audiobook, and wanted to know if you're interested too. And I'm expecting me to say yes, and they're like, oh, well, that'll just be $5,000, and but then he and I'm like, okay, I would be cool to have my book into an audiobook, once I finish it, how much is this going to cost me? He's like, no, actually, we want to pay you some money. And I was like,
you're like, yes, please pay me for my work.
Yeah, and seriously, and this was only like, halfway through my book even being done, and without the rest of it being outlined. So it was really cool, but it also definitely raised the stakes and anxiety levels for sure.
It puts a lot more pressure on you to get it done too.
Yeah, no kidding.
Because you weren't even at a finish point when they were like, hey, we want your book. And you're like, I don't have a book yet. Not really.
Yeah, so that was a pretty interesting little adventure. I know everybody's self-publishing journey is different, and, you know, no two will be alike, but I definitely have picked up and learned a lot along the way, too, so.
Yeah, and you're always, I always catch you on TikTok giving out as much advice as possible, so what is the best piece of advice that you think you've gotten for self-publishing?
Man, what if I try to break it down to a quick top 3?
Yeah, that'll work.
We're good with that. We're good.
Okay. So I really like the programs. They're both made by the same company. And again, no affiliation. I wish they paid me to promote their programs as much as I am for free, to be honest. But one is called Atticus, and then one is called KDP Rocket. And they're both made by the same company. And Atticus lets you format your book. And you know, I thought that was one last step I was going to have to do to pay someone to format my book. And honestly, there is no way that someone could have formatted my book for me because of all the illustrations and stuff I had inside it and all the different things I wanted to do. And Atticus is so easy to use and so user-friendly, and puts your book in print ready, you know, puts it in ebook ready. It lets you pick the pages, and they've just made some great updates to it. So I haven't used the other one. I think it's called Vellum or something, which is more geared towards Mac. So I'm not familiar with that to compare it. But from what I have used, Atticus did everything I needed for me, and it was cheap and easy to use and figure out. And then the same company also makes KDP Rocket, which is another program that helps look at Amazon and helps you determine what categories and keywords for your book. And this one takes a little bit more research, but you know, again, nobody's going to tell you this, but you have to pick 3 categories and 7 keywords for your book when you're getting ready to upload it to Amazon. So, you know, you also have to do research. You have to make sure that your book fits those categories. You have to use this program to look up these other categories, to look up keywords for your book, to make sure that you pick the right ones. And KDP Rocket does this great thing where you can look up titles, you can look up keywords, and it somehow breaks it down and tells you approximately like how many books are selling for this keyword every day, or how many copies of this particular book are selling every day. So it really helps you, you know, like for example, I classify my book as Grimdark fantasy. So I can type, and Amazon doesn't have that particular category, but I can type Grimdark fantasy in there as a keyword, and it'll show me all the other books that pop up for that. So then I can look at those books and see their description, their cover, and do some of that research that, you know, that marketing research you really need to do ahead of time that nobody tells you about. So those are my 2 programs I would recommend. And that's just advice bullet number 1. So for the second one, I think this is kind of a little bit of both writing and self-publishing advice together. And another author on TikTok, Peter Cap, just reached out to me to ask about this. So I think a great marketing tool is writing a short story, especially if it's like a prequel short story of your book or your world, and making it free and available. And you can put it on your email list, you could put it on Amazon. And making it free gives people a chance to check it out and see if they're interested in your writing before, you know, buying your book. And I mean, even that in itself is kind of a marketing point. Like if somebody is ever on the fence about buying your book, or they're like, oh, this is interested, like you can always just respond and say, hey, I have this free ebook. Why don't you check it out? And if you are interested, you know, then you could get the other book. And you could put it on your newsletters. You could put it on so many different places. So I think that's a great piece of writing/marketing advice for authors, but it comes with a trick on the self-publishing side. So Amazon doesn't like you publishing your book for free. They don't make money off it if they aren't charging money for it. So you don't have an option to make your book free on Amazon when you first upload it. But you can go on other websites like Barnes & Noble or Apple Books or things like that and then make your book free there. And then once you make your book free there, you have to go back to Amazon through KDP and contact them and then say that you want to do price matching and tell them that some of the other major retailers are offering your book for free and you want to price match it on their site. And then finally they will put your book to $0 on Amazon, and you have to go through that convoluted process that is barely out there on the internet to figure out how to do it.
That is a long string to do, but getting that book out there for free has got to make it easier for people to get into your world.
Yeah,
For sure.
and unfortunately, you know, just the way everything is set up, Amazon is definitely the market share even for free books. There's a really great platform called Draft the number 2 digital, which lets you upload your book and book files, and then it uploads it automatically to basically everywhere except for Amazon. So instead of going to Barnes & Nobles and Apple Books and all those places individually, you can go to Draft to Digital, upload your book, get it out on all those places, and then go back to Amazon. But I think even though Amazon can be uploaded from there, I've read that you want to do those separately. I can't remember the reasons why, but I did anyways. And yeah, so that's how you get your book out there for free, and that's how you trick Amazon into putting it out there. Oh, and that was the part I was going to say. Even though, unfortunately, you know, or I put it out on all those other places, unfortunately, 90% or more of my free ebooks have been downloaded from Amazon only, even counting all those other 15+ sites.
Yeah.
Yeah, they've got a huge market share and a huge cap on the on where people get their books in general. I mean, that's, you just see a lot of people get through KDP in general for publishing, and so Amazon definitely has a thing on that. I noticed you talked about Atticus. Atticus would be essentially the PC version of Vellum, correct?
Yes, yeah, and I'm not sure if it works on Mac as well, but yeah, I think it's basically the PC version of Vellum. And again, I haven't used Vellum to compare, but from what Atticus did for me, you know, and I guess I have one example I can show just to kind of show the complications of my book, and I guess get to show off my book a little more too.
There you go.
But so on the very first page, when chapter 1 opens, oh, there's a map there too, if you can kind of see it.
I love that.
But there is an illustration on one side of Malthus in chains. And then, sorry, I'm kind of falling apart here. And then I have, you know, chapter 1, chapter name. I have what's called an epigraph. I didn't even know what those were called until then, but that's kind of like a little quote from a random character in my world to give some more world building. I have, you know, a little ornamental break of the skulls, and then the text starts. And, you know, you can do all of that with Atticus without too much difficulty. And that's a custom image I was able to upload also without too much difficulty. So you can really, you can really customize your book, you know, very professionally with Atticus.
Yeah, see, I have a Mac, and so I've used Vellum, and I've been playing with Vellum a lot. I won't shut up about it, but it's absolutely amazing how much prettier my book looks putting it through a formatting software than trying to format it inside of Word like I did the first time around.
Yeah.
He got to my house today, and he couldn't stop talking about Vellum. Sarah, you gotta look at this. It was like,
so great.
Sir, I have a PC. Do not get me addicted to this thing that I cannot use.
Well, you'll have to get Atticus and then be the voice of Atticus in the house.
There you go.
But I don't think a lot of people think about formatting the interior of the book like that. They think once it's typed, you can just squeeze it down to the right page size and you're formatted and you're good to go. But a lot of times that's not the case, and your book doesn't come out looking as pretty as you're going to want it to be. So I think Atticus or Vellum as a formatting software on the interior is kind of a must if you're going to be putting your books out for people to purchase in the paperback or the digital.
I feel like especially with the, you know, I feel like you might be able to get away with it with just an ebook, but if you're doing a physical copy at all, like I mean, even that's something that there's a ton of thought that goes into that nobody ever thinks about. Like, Amazon only offers a few different sizes to print your book, and you have to upload a paperback. If you're going to do paperback and hardcover, it's different cover files, it's different interior files, and if you pick, 6 inches by 9 inches or 5.5 by 8.5, you have to have a different format, and Atticus can do all of that with a click of the button. But also, that's just one more thing as an author that you have to do a little bit of research on and think about, because the smaller book size you pick makes more pages, and the more pages there are means your book costs more to make, and so you get less of the profit. And then also, if you are going to write more than one book, no one likes having different sized books on their shelves too, so you kind of have to think about all those things moving forward.
Be the worst human being and change your size by 0.5 every time. That'll work.
Little steps.
You're a monster. That's what the trick is.
I bought these books because they change size from largest to smallest over time.
No, it looks like a little staircase. So I did have one more kind of random piece of advice that's a new one I figured out, and I mentioned this briefly on your live when I hopped in randomly. So this was something new I figured out. So for ebooks, a lot of us authors, especially indie authors, are looking at Kindle Unlimited to use that program because of some of the benefits it gives us. I mean, for one, if it's on Amazon and Kindle Unlimited, they, I don't know to what extent, but they also help push the book more on their search engines and things like that. And also, you get paid per page read for Kindle Unlimited. And I hate to say it, but it's about equal to my book sales as my Kindle, KE and P or whatever it is. So there are a lot of benefits to having your book on Kindle Unlimited, and if you do that, then your ebook is then exclusive to Amazon. So you can't, if you're doing what I said earlier with Draft to Digital, like you can't do that with your ebook if you're going to put that in Kindle Unlimited. So then you upload your paperback and your hardcover, or one or the other, to Amazon, and you get it printed through there. And doing that benefits you as an author because it puts it on one of the biggest retailer sites, your physical copies. And typically, there are more individual book sales and things like that, and you get a higher return by having it on Amazon. However, the other book file or book uploader out there is Ingram Spark that everybody's aware of. And so with Ingram Spark, a lot of people will upload their ebook to Amazon. They'll be in Kindle Unlimited, and then they'll upload their book files to Amazon and just print through there. And I think like a lot of people are under the impression that, you're in Kindle Unlimited, so you can only use Amazon. But that's only the case for your ebook. For your print copies, you can get them printed at both Ingram Spark and Amazon, and there are reasons why you would want to do it for both. So I've already mentioned why it kind of has more benefit to doing it on Amazon, but when you do it on Ingram Spark, and I'm still figuring out Ingram Spark. I don't have my books fully uploaded there. I've heard some unfortunately bad things, like their customer service is difficult and their prices went up and that some of their quality has gone down. However, I also found this out recently after talking to a bookstore, but apparently many bookstores, libraries, and even schools and colleges use Ingram Spark, for one, because they see Amazon as their competition, but two, because Ingram Spark also has this thing set up where when you set your book prices, you can also set a wholesaler or bookseller discount, and I guess the average going rate is anywhere between 35 to 55% discount, which is pretty steep, and that's why you don't really get some of the return that you do on Amazon. However, if you do this, then it allows bookstores and all those places and libraries, like I said, to buy your book, and they're more likely to buy your book. And it's actually uploaded in a catalog where any of them can just browse it and say, hey, we want to carry this book. And then they do it, and Ingram Spark prints it all, and then you get, a check eventually, I guess. But you can also now, which I'm going to do, and which was how I found out, reach out to a bookstore and say, hey, my book, I'm a new indie author, I just published my book. It's available on Ingram Spark, and you can get a 50% discount for carrying it, And, not every bookstore will respond, but one that I talked to was very interested, and another one in my hometown in California, actually, I'm talking to them through a friend, and one of the first questions they asked him was if my book was in Ingram Spark yet. So that was one thing I didn't know. That's my number 3 for self-publishing advice.
Well, you seem to have a well of advice. Have you been at this for a very long time for just figuring out self-publishing, or has it just been in this time frame you figured out, I want to publish Malthus, so you've done all this research and now you have that knowledge?
You know that meme or GIF that's got like Charlie Day standing in front of the board with all the strings? Like that was me for a good 2 or 3 months. I just went in depth and just researched as much as I could. I was looking on Google, I was asking people, I was looking in crazy Reddit forums that were 10 years old, and I don't know, just kind of piece everything together. And it sucks that there isn't really a single resource for all of this. I'm sure there are. I know there's a lot of other self-publishing books and stuff out there, and I have actually lately been thinking about kind of writing a little short book on self-publishing just to kind of put some of this info out there for people, because it is not out there.
Well, and if there is advice out there, sometimes it's leaning one way or it's leaning another. It's very rigid, like this is what you have to do, this is what you can't do, when in reality, it's kind of a pick and choose where you go, honestly. Between Ingram Spark and KDP, especially in a self-publishing thing, you don't have all the deadlines and red tape. We talk about that all the time. There's not really a dead set place to go to ask questions and be like, hey, if I want to have my own ISBN, where do I buy that?
Yeah, and then that's one more thing that you don't really figure out till you're more than halfway through the process. That you have to go buy ISBNs, and unfortunately they also cost money, and then you have to buy one for each version of the book too, like ebook, paperback, hardcover, all need their different ones. And I even found this out too, but if you are printing from Ingram Spark and you are printing from Amazon, I guess their paperbacks are the same, so you're okay there with one ISBN. But if you do hardcovers, Amazon prints a laminate, I think it's called laminate case hardcover, which is like that, where it's printed on there. Yeah. And then Ingram Spark does this, but they also do dust covers. And so if you do the dust cover one, that's another separate ISBN that you need, apparently.
Maybe there just needs to be a website collecting all of this information into one space.
Welcome to the indie author community. This is where you can find all of the things.
Right.
Yeah, no kidding. Well, if I do end up publishing a little self-publishing book or novelette, I'm going to use one of my earlier advice points and make it free for everybody, because I'm not trying to make money off of all this crap. There's already enough people trying to make money off of us. I'd rather that be out there for free.
Trying to make money off of us, trying to tell us what we can and can't do, when in reality, if we wanted that, we'd all gone traditional.
Right.
Yeah. You never know. Every now and then somebody will email you and say something crazy, like they want to pay you money for your audiobook.
Yes. Okay, well, Casey, where can everybody find you?
So I am here on TikTok, and I need to start posting again. I know I've been taking a little bit of a break because I've been kind of doing the Charlie Day thing with sprayed edges lately and trying to figure that out. But I am on TikTok. I basically tried to be Casey Sutton Writes for almost everything. So my website's CaseySuttonWrites.com, and on Facebook, Instagram, and TikTok, I'm at Casey Sutton Writes. And yeah, that's where you can find me.
Well, we'll send you an email and get all those links. That way we can get you in the description on YouTube and Spotify and Amazon and Apple Music.
Yeah, any link or anything you need.
Any link that you want us to share, we'll share it. So
awesome. Well, cool.
Absolutely.
This was really fun. Thanks for having me on, and yeah, I really appreciate this. This was a cool
Thanks for reaching
convo.
out. It was
You've been a great guest, man. So we're gonna go ahead and end this one. I am D.L. Golden. You can find my book Origins on Amazon. And this is
SF Rogers. You can find all the information about me and DL Golden and Seabrit and JC Bryce on runawaydaydreams.com. I don't have a book yet. So just go follow me, get the newsletter, be prepared, because it's coming eventually. It'll be there.
Awesome. See
Casey,
you later.
thank you so much.
bye.
Talk.